A few days ago, the attractive men greeted affluent ladies into a casino. They were unaware, though, that one of the wealthy women was actually Bella, a police officer disguised. She carried recording gear with her. Bella had quite good luck in her games after settling at the gaming table. Hunter, the manager of the casino, soon became interested in Bella's very winning nature. He told his guys to invite her to the major game. Hunter, the police officer waiting in the car, instantly called for assistance when the covert camera caught. At last, the big shot turned up. At this point, though, Hunter sensed something was off. He tugged down the camera. Hunter gave the order for packing, but the backup cops arrived already. Hunter tried to flee via the outside lift, but his size got him caught. At that moment, the male lead Lao Su also showed up at the steps. Lao Su lost control and became nasty. He leaped right away. However, he nearly dropped. Cheers for him came from everyone observing on the steps. Lao Su ascended and lived up to standards. Hunter exhaled in relief upon learning Lao Su had been spared. He advised the spectators below to keep on running. Eventually, these folks couldn't get away from the cops. Hunter, on the top story, was also surrounded. Bella intended to launch her toughest strike. Sure enough, it was avoided once more. Hunter watched the police closing in. He abducted a rich woman undercover. Lao Su came shockingly up to him. Hunter was invited to stab him. Lao Su might then obtain the insurance money. His child's tuition problem would be taken care of. But right at Hunter's distracted moment, two cops started attacking out of nowhere. Hunter was subdued by them working together. Bella finally opened her last strike. The gaming group was hence totally under control. But in another area of the city, a man in black placed a live streaming gadget on another individual. This individual held a university teaching post. He had already attacked one of his own students, yet he was cleared. Nevertheless, public opinion drove the female student into death. And now, under the pretext of justice, the man in black was scheduled to be executed. This rapidly became a trending issue. Xiaji, the so-called justice messenger, broke again another law. Still, the internet public view supported Xiaji. Lao Su was therefore somewhat nervous. Xiaji committed her first offense 9 months ago. A man maimed his girlfriend by spraying high-concentration hydrochloric acid on her out of a romantic conflict. Claiming drunkenness and having contacts behind his back, the man avoided legal penalties. Public outrage at that period also resulted from it. However, not long later, the man passed from hydrochloric acids all over damage. Lao Su said Xiaji operated as a serial killer, since prior incidents of this nature had been recorded. At 13 years old, one man killed his grandmother deliberately. He even burned scars from cigarettes on the face of the body. He dodged legal penalties since at that time he was not an adult. Nevertheless, he had the same cigarette burns on his face and was slain while studying in Singapore. The chief disagreed with this, though. He considered it simply internet and media's hype. These can be copycat crimes. Lao Su went home that evening to see a live stream from an online celebrity. Xiaji was regularly being praised by this influencer. He sharply attacked the administrative and court systems of the nation. The captain called him outdoor suddenly. As it happened, a prisoner was scheduled for release. The first part was contractor Park Wachang. He had once unintentionally killed a pregnant woman inebriated during a fight. The court decided, however, at that time Park lacked intention of killing. His emotional flash-off resulted from drunkenness. He was thus only sentenced 3 years in prison, and the victim's family got no civil reimbursement. Eventually, a number of factors drove the victim's family to act irresponsibly with their young child. This set public indignation even more. Now that netizens demanded Xiaji to assassinate Park Guochang, the government chose to safeguard Park Guochang's security. Park Guochang begged the captain to send someone to guard him when he was freed from jail. Lao Su was reluctant, but the next morning he still brought his soldiers to wait for the release of Park Guochang. Many celebrities arrived at the protest venue at this time in order to be noticed. Under the craziness of the crowd, the convoy battled to move. One of the influencers was really aggressive and brought a knife with him. Once at the site, Lao Su got Park Guochang out of the automobile. The audience came over to encircle them. they hardly could move at all. The knife-bearing influencer walked over at this point. A manly police officer halted him. Lao Su observed this scenario. Using the disorder, he brought Park Guo-chang inside. Lao Su truly enjoyed the young man's forceful legal enforcement. He so invited the young man to eat dinner that evening. Shan Yu, his name was a patrol officer. He had been suspended for too forceful treatment during an arrest. The two hated not meeting earlier. Lao Su asked him whether he would want to come work with him. Shan Yu was very eager. Seeing Lao Su arrest Liu Yaran, he decided to join the police. Lao Su answered a call from a District 1 police officer just then informing him that his son Yuzhen was under custody. Lao Su hung up thinking it was a fraud call, though. They had to call back to demonstrate it using a video. Yuzhen called the Suicide Prevention Center, then hurried over to provide help. Lao Su instantly ran home upon learning this. Yuzhen seemed okay after kicking open his son's bedroom door. The pair went to a school conference the following day. The institution chose to move Yuzhen. Lao Su responded right away with an objection. Others as a whole threatened Yuzhen, which drove him to fight. But at this instant, the captain called Lao Su away for a pressing concern. Xieji emailed a video to 10 influencers. One of them posted it on his own page. The news has lately gone viral. That was the section in which the instructor perished. Xieji now revealed that Park Guo-chang was the next target. Still, Lao Su was obviously preoccupied. Though unable to break free, he was frightened for his son. From the other side, Yuzhen was also viewing that video from the Justice Minister influencer. He even agreed with murder of Park Guo-chang. Lao Su told the captain to pose Park Guo-chang to deflect public attention and have Shan Yu remove the actual Park Guo-chang that night. They effectively brought him back for protection to the police station. If you are loving what we are doing for you, can I put a demand before you for your love by subscribing?
Please subscribe.
Lao Su's wife begged him to visit right in middle of the night. Late at night, Shan Yu drove Lao Su to a hardware shop. He snapped some pictures before leaving. Lao Su saw the Justice Minister's video thanks to his wife. Actually, this individual had developed a section implying who Xieji should kill. He brought up a woman who killed her aging husband after cheating on him. She gathered $1 billion worth of insurance, but his wife claimed the influencer was speaking gibberish. She recalled that at the time the insurance funds totaled less than 100 million. Furthermore, bought covertly by the old guy without knowledge of his young wife and the hardware store was owned by young wife. The court had decided at that period him not guilty. According to the influencer, this puts her and her child at risk. This morning, someone had already shattered the window. Lao Su intended to get in touch with the local police, so they might boost area patrols. He would also seek for the woman a panic alarm watch. Shan Yu stumbled discovered a video of Yuzhen being bullied at lunch. Just as he was ready to show Lao Su, it was interrupted by the Justice Minister's footage. He said he will interview Xieji just once live tonight, only. Lao Su took his squad to the location that evening. The influencer was chatting with Xieji in meantime. Lao Su told Shan Yu to approach, since the Justice Minister identified several of them. The others were told not to come too near. Conversely, Park Guo-chang got a call from his mother out of nowhere. His facial expression changed right away. Park Guo-chang entered the restroom and drew a key from the tank to open the rear door. The capture in the square went on meanwhile. In the throng, they noticed a dubious man and sped towards the middle square. The man looked at Shan Yu, then turned to dash. Shan Yu trailed close by. The two dashed straight for the steps. The black dude was quite nimble and a parkour master. Lao Su missed catch-up. The black man ascended to a better vantage point. Lao Su found herself utterly unable to match. Only Shan Yu was still just barely keeping up at the end. He, snatching the man, removed his mask. The man in black broke away and kept on a sprint. Shan Yu was really furious. He kept rolling the man down the steps. Lao Su found Shan Yu saying innocuously, "I caught Xieji." Turning the man over, Lao Su discovered he was very hurt. The influencer was live-streaming the detention in meantime. He asserted that the cops were acting with too much force. But his reaction was more startled when he arrived and saw the man with great injuries. Lao Su became aware of something lacking. Lao Su felt the man they dispatched to the hospital was not Xieji. The justice minister earned 5 million won from the live webcast just 1 hour ago. Lao Su hypothesized that this was his plan. He was attempting to get noticed. The captain answered a phone right then. The body of Park Guochang has turned up. Like the pregnant woman, both had back of their heads injuries. Lao Su, however, noticed unusual markings on his neck and surmised he had been strangled first and then had his head battered in. On the other hand, the justice minister, grabbing the momentum from last night, was continuing live streaming for profit. Suddenly, Lao Su arrived with his squad. Following the influencer caused the child to get caught in anarchy. He still lay in the intensive care unit. The youngster's girlfriend had previously come clean about everything. The planner of everything was the influencer. The Minister of Justice was totally surprised. Lao Su advised him to let him know right away whether he got any rumors concerning Xieji. On the other hand, Yuzhen was being tormented once more and compelled into a will fight. Shan Yu found him here out of nowhere in the following second. The young guy identified him as the police officer from that evening. Shan Yu moved right away and joyfully entered the ring. Not too far away, Park Guochang's case was still under inquiry at the police station. His last call came from a burner phone. There was nothing further to find. Not long after, Lao Su answered a call from his wife informing him the child, who tormented Yuzhen, had dropped by their house begging for charity. Shan Yu was hiding under a car. Meanwhile, driven to the riverbank that evening was the hooded man. He received signals to get out and get a paper bag from someone pointing a laser. From across the steps, the two shared looks. Netizens were heavily criticizing the motorbike gang riding dangerously on the city streets at the same time. Certain even wanted Xieji to punish them. And today the man in a hood was trailing closely behind them. The cops got involved in the probe right away. The suspect turned out to be Min Kongshuan, 28 years old. His dear girlfriend passed away in a car accident brought on by a motorbike gang 2 years ago. Min Kongshuan was then in the special forces. Having tried to get retribution on his leave, he was furious the offender was not punished. He was so compelled to retire. Later on, his record included narcotics trafficking. His automobile also shown up parked outside Park Guochang's flat. A couple cops started looking right away on site. They found Min Kongshuan's automobile. Lao Su also came upon a notebook in the vehicle. It included pictures of Park Guochang in prison and specifics on others he had blacklisted, including the leader of a motorbike gang, together with his illegal actions. Lao Su then went into the alley to look about. Used syringes scattered around the ground. Drug sellers have to be present here. Shan Yu and him kept looking farther. They found Min Kongshuan indeed hiding. Lao Su found the syringes all around to Repulsive and told Min Kongshuan to visit on his own. Shan Yu unexpectedly entered as well. Taking up a needle, he stabbed himself. He purposefully produced the impression of resistance against arrest. The two started struggling with each other right away. The junkies captured Lao Su. He couldn't jump in to offer help right away. Shan Yu held Min Kongshuan in a chokehold evidently meant to kill him. At a pivotal point, Lao Su showed up to halt Shan Yu. Min Kongshuan seized the chance for escape right away. Other cops came fast to encircle him. Running to the rooftop was Min Kongshuan. Shan Yu kicked him off just moments later. Shan Yu then tucked his legs over his neck. The others drove them apart when they got here. Someone else might have died otherwise. Min Kongshuan broke out and still refused to be taken into custody. He was certainly somewhat challenging as a former Special Forces soldier. None of them could subdue him. Shan Yu hurried over once more and started arguing with him. Shan Yu started to smile sinisterly suddenly. Then he turned sharply forward. Shan Yu aimed to shove him off the structure. Min Kongshuan struggled valiantly. At a pivotal point, Min Kongshuan was snatched by someone. Shan Yu staggered instead. Luckily, his life was not under risk. Still, he ended up honorably in the hospital. Lao Su went back to the cop station, meant to question Min Kongshuan, but others had already taken over the matter. The coroner told Lao Su straight away that Park Woo-chong did not die from a back of head injury. His cause of death was neck asphyxia. Still, the marks on the neck of the body neither came from a hand nor from a rope. The coroner conjectured that he was strangled with a thigh. He also illustrated this using relevant video. I went right now looking for Shan Yu-related videos. Indeed, he was really adept at doing this. He had fallen for a riddle. Lao Su urged for an inquiry of Shan Yu right away. Lao Su was unaware, though, that Shan Yu had already tapped his phone. Lao Su hastened back to the police station and told his colleagues Min Kongshuan was not Xieji and clarified that Min Kongshuan was the person being strangled on that video. The two should hence be acquainted. Later, Shan Yu sent Min Kongshuan information and tools to enable him to exact retribution for his dead lover. Then he let him act as Xieji. Shan Yu intended to kill the man by catching the phony Xieji on that evening. He couldn't, however, transform the phony into the actual one. He thus tried to carry out the same strategy and turn Min Kongshuan into Xieji once more. Sadly, he still failed. Analyzing this, he sent others to look at Shan Yu's house. To gain some time, he went back to the hospital. Shan Yu, who had been listening in on the call, had, however, already disappeared without notice. His wife contacted at this point to inform him that the owner of the hardware store had vanished without notice. His wife came over to assist in child viewing. She searched for her with Lao Su's assistance. But right afterward, an unidentified call came in. Shan Yu was on the other side, holding the wife of the owner of a hardware business. Lao Su aimed to convince him to turn himself up and avoid hurting innocent people. Shan Yu had a film, nevertheless, to show him. He also tied Yuzhen back up. Lao Su made swift internal line contacts to the captain. Shan Yu, meantime, hooked the tools to the wife of the hardware store owner so she could view her mistake. Desperate, shaking her head, the woman sought to defend herself. Still, Shan Yu paid absolutely no attention. Lao Su, on the other hand, drove to the spot. He was surprised to find the justice minister tethered there. All around him were glass fragments. The justice minister begged Lao Su to rescue himself. His phone rang, Shan Yu on it. There was also the spouse of the hardware store owner. Shan Yu reiterated over the phone that he had never claimed to be Xieji. The justice minister invented that title completely. His stupidity had caused great offense to many people. Shan Yu then played Lao Su a voice recording. 4 days Shan Yu has been tracking Lao Su. He captured a lot of extremist remarks. Shan Yu offered Lao Su 2 choices. The first was treating the justice minister as Xieji and killing the owner of the hardware business under his name, therefore attributing all past events on the justice minister. Still, the justice minister wouldn't be in any hurry. All things considered, he was the most gainer from the Xieji event. Lao Su would then pose as though he unintentionally killed the justice minister in self-defense during an inquiry. With this choice, Yuzhen would be saved, and they might remain co-workers. Lao Su had another choice: insist on arresting Shan Yu. Yuzhen would so be under risk. Moreover, Shan Yu would convert Lao Su into Xieji. Lao Su knew nothing about what to do. Initially, he chose to save the owner of the hardware business first. Shan Yu suddenly turned up before him. Then, though, his colleagues reported that they had located Yuzhen, tied off in. Lao Su now lacked any further worries. He charged Shan Yu with his fist right away. Shan Yu, on the other hand, was quite talented. Not even the Special Forces soldier Min Kongshuan could surpass him, let alone Lao Su. Lao Su was thrown aside by Shan Yu in the struggle. Lao Su was recuperating when Shan Yu got the automobile running. Lao Su tried to halt the car as it crept slowly ahead, but Shan Yu impeded her. The two battled right down to the bottom of the camera. Shan Yu locked Lao Su against the metal railing. Though he worked very hard to break free, he was forced into the plastic sheeting once more. The owner of the hardware shop was nearing death in meantime. An automobile turned unexpectedly from the other side. That was the captain here to offer backup. Swinging the iron pipe in a pivotal time, he saved the owner of the hardware store. Conversely, Lao Su bit through the plastic sheets to release himself. Examining the glass fragments, Lao Su got an idea. Using Shan Yu's diversion, he landed some headbutts. Lao Su then seized his lower torso and hurled him onto the glass fragments. To stop Shan Yu from getting back up, he pinned him. Unexpectedly, Shan Yu grabbed the chance and performed a leg choke. Lao Su hit precisely a number of times. The justice minister stifled at the sight as well. Shan Yu heard sirens right at this point. He battled to drive the frame across. Lao Su could only protect him under his body. Luckily, they fit in a frame gap. Shan Yu fled in his car. The captain showed they're barely in time to grab Lao Su and pursue him at a turning point. Shan Yu's driving was always excellent. The skipper hardly caught up at all. Sadly, though, other police cars have already blocked the exit. Shan Yu thought he was unable of escaping anymore. He thus reversed the automobile and charged backwards. Lao Su hastily stepped from the vehicle and discovered Shan Yu hurled from the vehicle. Not even had he secured his seatbelt. Lao Su checked and discovered there was no pulse. He hauled him outside and started doing first aid. Remarkably, he brought him back to life. Lao Su even fitted handcuffs on Shan Yu before he was hauled away in the ambulance. Right then, the hostages were also freed. The justice minister's daring in filming a video surprised everyone. Eventually, the tired members collapsed to rest on the ground. The head called a news conference right away to declare that the actual Xieji had been apprehended by the cops. Lao Su went back home and blankets wrapped his family. Here is where the narrative finishes. Still, the last titles of the film reveal something. Shan Yu escaped during a prison transfer, although his sentence was life in jail. The chief knelt in the conference room to apologize for this. Probably a third installment will be created. Particularly the artistic moment of rolling down the long staircase. The action scenes in this movie have the impression of vintage Hong Kong films. Watching the battles was quite thrilling because they were rather fierce. Though in actuality Shan Yu was merciless, this time the villain was not as horrible as in the previous movie he starred in. On the surface, she seemed to be a decent person. He thus seemed somewhat terrifying to observe. Though it couldn't match its predecessor, overall it was still a quite solid effort. If you like my channel, kindly click to subscribe.